I think that's the formula really for a lot of industries moving forward. Put in the time, you have to put in the effort, and you have to always show up. It's really not a secret.
Thanks again for coming to another episode with Aspiring Oil, where our job is to love, lead, inspire, and serve. Anyway, today I have Elliot Lee as a guest. Elliot, thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Thank you, Elliot.
So we're just going to get started real quick. Elliot, just give us a background. Tell us real quick where you're from, what you do. I know his group has done over $1 billion in real estate, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And he's more in the luxury market. So Elliot, we can start off with that.
Yeah. So I'm an American Taiwanese.
Okay.
And I was born in the States, and I've lived in many different parts of the world. Okay. And so I've lived in Taiwan, LA, Shanghai, now Miami, where I've been for 10 years. Okay. And I've been in the real estate business for also about 10 years. That's basically a quick background of who I am.
Where was your favorite place to live from all of them?
It's difficult to say. I gotta say, when it comes to the social setting, I really enjoyed Shanghai.
Okay.
But because Shanghai is a very international city, actually.
Okay.
So when you go there, it's not just Chinese people that you meet. There's also Europeans and people from Dubai, wow. Australians and Japanese and Korean. And so it's a whole, it's a really big crowd when you go there. But I don't like the weather there. So
how's the weather?
It's, let's say summer is extremely humid and winter is extremely cold, but you don't get snow. And then summer, it's very unforgiving, and it's usually always cloudy there. So it's always gray skies. There's only about 1 week in the year, from May until May 7th, only 1 week that you will have blue skies.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. So when it comes to the weather, it's, and the pollution, of course, when I used to live there, it wasn't as bad. Now now on the AQI, it's one of the worst. And wow. there are days that you can only see, I think 100 feet of visibility before you start seeing smog. And it's gotten really bad. But when I lived there, it wasn't like that.
How many 100 feet can you see when you lived there?
No, when I lived there, it was pretty clear. I mean, you probably, I don't know, 600-700 feet. You're totally cool,
Gotcha.
But nowadays, it's actually really bad over there.
100 feet is like a basketball court.
Yeah, no, it's literally from here to kind of a little bit behind the camera. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's really bad. And there are certain days where the government actually tells you not to go out because the pollution is so bad over there, So
they won't promote that here, I bet you.
No, of course not. Of course not.
And then from Shanghai, you come to Miami. What made you come to Miami?
I came to Miami because I really enjoyed what Miami had to offer. I love the water. I love the beach. I'm a water guy. I love the palm trees. I like the tropical feel. And that was really an immature reason why I came here. But it also was a stepping stone to a much greater purpose. When I did come here, having seen so many different international cities, it just showed me how much more Miami has to grow. And me as a person, I wanted to be a part of growth, and I just see so much potential in this city.
Gotcha. So you're a visionary. You already knew, hey, man, 10 years from now, Miami's going to be really, has so much potential.
I came to Miami and I just saw land everywhere. I mean, this was, again, 10 years ago. Whereas now you're not seeing as much.
Yeah.
But you still see vacant lots here and there. You go to LA, you go to Taiwan, you go to Shanghai, you don't see anything vacant anywhere.
Wow, yeah.
You don't see vacant land.
York, yeah.
In Miami, you see vacant land on the beach. You see vacant land on the water, and these are all things that having a unique background, being from living in different parts of the world, I have a more globalized perspective where when I come here, I have something bigger than just Miami to compare to. I can see where Miami, different neighborhoods can become. For example, Midtown or Wynwood is like Soho maybe 15 years ago, right?
Gotcha. How about Little Havana. Every time I come there, it's so next to Brickell. I'm like, this has so much
Yeah,
potential.
yeah. Little Havana is unique in a way because there is no other city that is like Little Havana except for Little Havana,
Yeah.
right? So Little Havana is a very unique type of a city for me. But because of the proximity to one of the largest financial districts in the United States, Little Havana has a ton of potential. They also have much more multifamily than the rest of the county.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of definitely a ton of opportunities there, and the only difficulty that I see with Little Havana is that it's a very sort of a family oriented. Like a lot of Cuban immigrants when they came, they brought their entire families there. So
Yeah.
a lot of the people that live in Little Havana are just generational, and they usually have their entire families in there. So it's something to kind of be considerate about when you're going in there and purchasing, because you're either displacing families, generational families, or you're helping to make their lives better. And of course, we as real estate people, we always look at the vision and where everything can get to, but we also should respect that there's a culture in Little Havana.
Yeah.
You know? So
It's
that's
actually people that live there and they generations just. So where do you see the next big growth in the South Florida area? I mean, I see a lot of people looking at Homestead.
Yeah.
I mean, where would you look at?
Well, I tend to typically look more at prime land.
Gotcha. No secondary markets.
So Little Havana, I think for a developer's case, it's a huge growth opportunity because there's so much land that you can buy there. But I tend to focus more on the sections that are along the water, or the sections that are poised to have maybe more explosive growth as a potential, instead of just like a local area.
Gotcha. So what section would that be like?
So
Bayside, Sunny Isles.
Well,
Golden
Sunny
Beach.
Isles is actually really developed already. Right now, there are sections of Miami Beach that still, the price per square feet has not gotten to where prime Miami Beach areas are, like south of Fifth, right? That's prime. Sunny Isle, Bal Harbor is considered also a prime.
Super prime, yeah.
Super prime, right?
With like the same Regis and the Ritz is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And Bal Harbor shops and all that.
For sure.
So there are surrounding areas that I believe are pockets that the prices per square feet, there's absolutely no way that it's not going to grow because of the proximity and just the growth factor that I have seen in Taiwan, I have seen in Shanghai, and I keep going back to Shanghai because my family lived there when Shanghai was just starting to get noticed in the world.
Gotcha. And started the beginning stage of development.
Started to develop. And I was very fortunate to be in that environment, seeing it grow exponentially. I've seen people make money not only on the real estate appreciation, but also on the currency of the yuan appreciating. So
wow.
It's a twofold, trifold, and in a sense, they can 11 times or 20 times their return on investment because of these kind of factors. And so from what I've seen in terms of growth in Shanghai and how all these areas start popping up, is experience that I bring to at least Miami, and I envision different from a globalized perspective for the clients. So to go back to your question, I think Bay Harbor Islands is a very underrated.
Developed.
Yeah, and underdeveloped area, but the proximity, the location, just moving forward, I don't see how it couldn't become one of those. And also, you have sections of Miami Beach like North Beach, where a very similar neighborhood to North Beach, I would say, is sort of Surfside area, which they're very close together. But Surfside now already has the Four Seasons. It has the Fendi, Chateau. It's got the Arte. So it has a lot of ultra luxury developments there. But we're still seeing North Beach as more of like a quiet area.
Yeah.
And you can still purchase property there for $700, $800 a square feet. Whereas if you're, just to put in comparison, if you're in south of Fifth, you're probably looking at an average of $1,400, $1,500 a square foot.
Feet.
So that's a lot of growth that can still be put there as someone like yourself to when they look in these areas, those are where the potential areas are. And then moving north, of course, Pompano Beach, I think, is also a good area.
It's very up and coming.
Yeah. Those areas are very good, and also North Miami, I think, is a really good area for growth. Biscayne Park, sort of anywhere that's along those areas that have connecting cities that are all sort of more on the prestigious level.
Gotcha.
I think they all have very good potential for huge growth.
So, Elliot, how you got started in real estate?
I started from very humble beginnings. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I actually was in California with my mother, and she took me to a few open houses. And
wait, does your mom do real estate over there?
My mom she's like my idol, sort of. So she does investments around the world. So she's purchased properties in China, France, LA, Australia, everywhere.
Okay.
But she has a very unique way of investing. She is not looking at spreadsheets. I'm actually the one that puts things on spreadsheets for her, and she'll tell me, I don't want to look at that.
Gotcha. So she has a niche,
she has a formula that she has, and everything that she touches makes money. And sometimes I don't understand it because she doesn't look at cap rates. She doesn't look at numbers. She purchases a property based off of her experience going around the world. And she's very well traveled. So I think that's one of the things that she's able to see, So
she takes you to a few open houses, and then is that where the passion started?
Well, she took me to an open house, and we were there for an entire day, and she asked me if I was bored, and I said, no, I'm having a good time. So at that time, it's 18 years old, and she said, why don't you try getting into real estate? And I said, I don't even know where to begin. And she said, just get your license and then figure it out from there. So I came back to Miami, and I was contemplating about getting the license. At that time, I was still in university, and I didn't really care too much because I was having a good time, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then I went through a big a part of my life. I went through an experience that changed my mindset. I had a spine surgery.
Wow.
This was about 11 years ago. So all the timeline, when I start telling you, you'll see everything kind of falls into place. And I went, long story short, when I went to the doctors, they told me I had a 50% chance of success, because it was the surgery from my neck all the way to the top of the lower spine.
Wow.
So I currently have 23 titanium screws and 2 rods
holding you together. Wow.
Yeah. I'll show you. I'll show you an X-ray. It's gnarly.
That's sick. That's amazing.
Yeah. But when that experience actually changed my mindset. So one day I'm out at a dinner, right? You're with your friends, you're drinking, you're having fun, you're in college, and then the next moment I return, and when I'm out there drinking with all my friends, I realize I feel like it's time just wasted.
Gotcha.
That experience was a really big part of my life, and it really showed me that, just like the gentleman that you met, just literally being able to get out of your bed and walk is a blessing.
Yeah.
And we
take it for granted.
Yeah, we do it all the time, and it's not really even a big deal. But at the end of the day, I realized that, being in hospital, you realize that, you look at people walking around and you're like, wow, they're so lucky. And I also met a gentleman there that told me all he ever wanted to do was start a business for his family. And he was their family didn't have a lot of money. But the doctor and his team actually gave back a third of his cost. And that experience taught me that you can be a great person and you can still be extremely successful
and generous.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't have to, you don't have to be a killer going out there killing left and right, trying to, and so that kind of stapled as core values for me when it came to working. And then the other side of that was when I met the gentleman that wanted to build the business. When I left and I was with my friends again, I couldn't stop thinking about him. You know, what would he do if he was in my position? And mind you, he had been in the hospital for like, I think it was like 15 years. When I met him, he had chemotherapy. He didn't have any hair. So when I left, all I could remember was like, what would he do if he was in my position? So I decided, all right, I'm going to jump in. So I got my license, and I began when I was 20 years old. And I didn't do it by going back to LA, which I could have easily done, or going back to Shanghai or working with the family. I wanted to do something on my own. So I started doing rentals, and this was in Hollandale. I was doing rentals for like $600, a month. It was,
the commission was like what, 1 month's rent?
Like
$300
after everything cut, it was like $200 or $300. It was crazy, and I don't even know how I got through all of that, but I remember a specific experience where I showed in it wasn't even a house. It was like a shack attached to a house. Okay. And the key wouldn't even, and I was like sweating because it was a client. I felt embarrassed, and I opened the door, and the minute I opened the door, I felt spider webs, right? And but that was a deal that I did complete, and then
they end up renting.
They did end up renting. And then from that time on, I just sort of grew my business step by step. I started getting into international sales. I got into pre-construction.
How did you start that? Like what happened real quick in a brief story? Did international sale? I met this person, or how did it start?
Well, it was really funny. My first international sale came from my dermatologist in Shanghai. So at one point, I was going out a lot, and I started getting a lot of pimples on my face, late nights and stuff. Yeah. So I had to have a dermatologist in Asia. And
you got to sell LXR over there. Yeah. It's a great product.
So she ended up telling me that she had this lady who married a guy from, he's from Costa Rica.
Okay.
And they wanted to buy a place in Miami because it was the midpoint between Costa Rica and also to Hong Kong.
Okay.
So they came to Miami, and then we went to see a couple of properties they didn't really like, and I realized that they liked new construction. So at the same time, Brickell City Center was just being built.
Yeah.
And Brickell City Center is being developed by Swire. Yeah. Who's a very big, very well-known company in Asia. They build some of the best products there. And so actually that international sale was done completely sight unseen because she knew who the developer was. And
made it more easier because she was already from that part of the world.
Yeah, and it actually flipped around because I was trying to convince her to come here to see it, before she made a decision, as opposed to me just saying, okay, let's just sign, right? Get a commission. And she was the one telling me, no, Ellie, I just want to sign it. So long story short.
They didn't even see the property, or they did?
They didn't see the property.
Just because they was familiar with the developer
Just because they were familiar with it. I mean, I showed them the brochures, I talked to them about the details, all that stuff, but they ended up making the purchase because of that. Okay. And that taught me that who the developer is when you're purchasing, especially new construction, is paramount to actually having the building even being built, right?
Yeah.
For number one, and then number two, what kind of quality that product is going to be delivered. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get introduced luxury market, international sales, both at once.
Yeah, pretty much. And so from there, we grew to basically doing luxury sales. Just it started to really accelerate from there. And then I met my partner, and we created really just a small team. It was just a partnership. It wasn't really even a team.
Yeah.
And then somehow through our years, and as we were doing bigger, we started working more with developers. We started working more with new construction. We started working with international deals. And we became very dynamic. So we were able to amass a lot of experience in a short amount of time. And from there, now today we have a team of 6 agents. Like you said, we've collectively done over $1 billion in sales, and we're trying to innovate. We're trying to put more technology, more convenience factor into a real estate purchase, because at the end of the day, it's still a very stressful transaction.
Gotcha.
Right?
And you have a competitive advantage doing that.
In terms, with
the technology.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So we try, we work hard, and so that's kind of what we do.
Now tell me something. So you deal a lot with the luxury market. What do you see is going to happen? Do you feel like there's going to be a bust soon, or a bubble's going to pop? Or
well, I think anybody that tells you they know what's going to happen are not truthful.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what's going to happen. Everybody thought that the market was going to crash back in 2014. Because of all the sales, everybody thought the market was going to crash during the pandemic, right? And none of that happened.
Yeah,
right.
Actually, started booming.
It started booming
in Miami.
And it actually was a core reason why Miami is the way it is today. I mean, the prices in Miami have accelerated almost similar to prices in Los Angeles, which the conversation 5 years ago would have been, oh, Miami is so much cheaper, Yeah. And right now it's starting to catch up, and it's because of the growth that Miami has.
The Bitcoin conference was just here not too long ago.
Yeah. And they moved it to Miami, and you're starting to see not even New Yorkers or Northeast are the regular domestic market that comes here. We're starting to see an influx from California, from the West Coast of the U.S. We're seeing Silicon Valley, technology people. These are heavyweight people that come to Miami and then they make it their home.
Wow.
They even come up with a term called reverse snowbirds now, where New Yorkers come down and they buy a property as their primary property, and they would still go back to New York during the summer seasons, and they're named reverse snowbirds.
Wow.
Right? Like, instead of having a primary property in New York and then coming down here during the winter season, they turn that into
property
a reverse.
here and just go in the summer, and then the rest of the time they're here.
Exactly.
So they never leave the heat, pretty much.
Yeah, and the most interesting fact, in my opinion, is that this is only the domestic market. We haven't even started seeing Europe coming back. We haven't started seeing South America coming back, which, South America is the largest market
here, especially,
so,
from all over.
In terms of answering your question, it's a very hard question to answer. And
Gotcha.
I'm not going to tell you that, I see that it's going to bust or boom, because my experience has been thinking it was going to bust and it didn't, or thinking it's not going to bust and it did, right? And that's happened before. Yeah. So what I can tell you is that the market statistics that we see today is really confident. And what we're seeing is much more of an issue between housing shortage and too much demand and not enough supply. And
Gotcha.
Usually when there's an imbalance of supply
and no demand,
then prices accelerate.
Yeah.
In our market right now, the market conditions, we're not, there's not a lot of factors that I think puts a really big risk to the real estate market. Back in 2008, buyers were coming here, they were putting down 20% equity. And when the mortgage crisis happened, they got out of their contract and they were able to leave. And that crashed the mortgage markets. Nowadays, mortgage companies are requiring developers to have at least 60% pre-sale before they can even get a construction loan. And developers are requiring buyers to put down 50% deposits.
That's true. I know a few people that are doing that right now.
Right. And that
down.
limits, you don't run away from a 50% deposit. So all of those things, and plus...
So it's less risk on everyone.
Yeah,
from the bank to the developer to
everyone,
the resident.
Right? So this is the market that we're in today. And then we also have the whole added benefit that right now in Miami, you're seeing that new developers are doing things very conservatively, right? Back in 2008, we had somewhere about 60 to 80,000 units, new construction units, on the market. In 2014, we were looking at half that number. So we were looking at about 20,000 units to 30,000 units being delivered to the marketplace. Today, there's only a handful of new construction property that's even being built. And I'm only talking about the Tri-County area, so Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach County, and also Broward County, right? I'm just strictly... And you're not seeing a lot of new groundbreaking from developers, which means that the inventory shortage is here to stay at least for the next few years. And you know that new construction projects to get off the ground to completion, 3 to 5 years. Easily, right? And so, that's kind of where we are in the market cycle. Now, are there things that can happen that can change the dynamics? Sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anything, right? But I like to just speak on facts that we have in the marketplace, and then let the clients make the decision from there.
Gotcha. So tell me something. What would you somebody wants to get started in real estate? What advice would you give them?
Well, so I get asked this question a lot. I would say to really understand the business, to really know if this is what you want to do. So one of the things I always tell new agents that want to join my team is I'm a very straightforward person.
Yeah.
So I will tell them it's not always glam and Rolls Royce and you're selling $50 million mansions every freaking weekend, right? Like,
yeah.
It's I tell people real statistics and I let them decide. For example, the average real estate agent in Florida, just Florida, makes $40,000 a year. Okay. And in our industry, there's an 80-20 rule, which I believe it's more so 90 and 10 rule.
So 10% make 90% of the money.
That's right.
Right.
So when you put those two statistics together, what you realize is 90% of the realtors out there make $40,000 or less. So what I tell new agents that come into the business is if you really, really want to be successful, keep that statistic in your mind. And if it's not something that you're willing to do, really, really willing to invest in, it's best if you don't waste a year of time doing this and realizing you don't want to do it, right? And then doing something that you really enjoy doing. And
Gotcha.
If it's something where these statistics, they don't scare you because you can be part of that 10%, which I knew about the statistics, it didn't scare me, and, then join.
So tell me something, because even to be part of that 10%, there's always a competitive advantage. You're not doing the same thing as the average 90% are doing, correct?
Sure.
So could you give if a guy wanted to start real estate, what would be a few pointers to help you to have a competitive advantage? Don't give all your secrets, Elliot, but some of them that changed the game for you where it made it more your frequency and you stop being in your own way.
Yeah. So I would say to embrace technology.
Okay.
I would say to remain consistent and have tenacity. I think that's the formula really for a lot of industries moving forward, right? Like even what you do, you have to remain consistent every single day, and I think those are really, it's really not a secret. You just have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort, and you have to always show up. And even us doing this podcast, we're doing it on a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
We could be doing something else, but we're both committing to meeting each other. So I just also want to take the time to thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, no problem, Elliot. It's awesome. My honor to have you, really.
Thank you very much, man.
So biggest failure.
So that's a really great question. So when we were off camera, we were talking about how at one point there was a Chinese developer that came to Miami, purchased $100 million of land, and it all hit the papers. Prior to this developer coming to Miami, I was working in a startup company that wanted to build an ecosystem for Asian investors when they come to Miami. So it was a really, really much bigger picture than just selling real estate. It was a grand vision, and in the process of creating all of that, I realized that some of the people that I was working with were not the best people,
Yeah.
and that had a big influence on me, because at one point, I myself didn't get paid for 2 years out of all the transactions that I was closing, and I realized that they were also taking advantage of students, and at that point, I wasn't so far from being a student myself.
Wow.
And they were taking advantage of these students. They were over-promising, under-delivering. They were not paying them as well.
Yeah.
And these are innocent students that came overseas to study. They don't even have a green card. They have to go through what is called an H-1B visa, or I'm sorry, OPT training program in order to even have a chance to stay. And from coming over here, luckily, of course, I don't have an issue of needing that.
Yeah.
But I have seen the lines outside embassies. I have seen people just trying their chance to at least have an opportunity to come to the United States to study.
Wow.
And that I feel was a failure, because when I had quit that company, I felt extremely lost. I felt angry. I felt displaced. But that, that showed me that me staying true to my character, which is you can do good things, you can be a good person and you can still be extremely successful.
Yeah.
Just let me know that was my North Star. That was my compass point.
Yeah.
And I just knew
it
that.
Give you a standard.
Yeah.
What to go by.
And it just was, I wasn't going to deviate from that, And even though that was one of the biggest failures that I've been through.
Yeah.
And it impacted me a lot.
And 2 years not getting paid. Yeah, I believe you.
I almost had to. At one point I had sold all of my furnishings, except
just to make ends meet.
Just to make ends meet. And
wow.
At one point, actually, the only thing I didn't sell was my Tempur-Pedic bed, because I loved my Tempur-Pedic bed.
Yeah.
And I was actually
the couch could go, the TV could go,
everything
but
go.
not the bed. Not the bed. Yeah.
So at one point, I even was almost gonna tie my bed to my car and drive it back to California. So that was and that for me was a pain point. That was a pain point in my life, and I'm very fortunate to say that I was able to turn that around.
I love it.
And get to at least where I am today.
So it made you hungrier. So when you got into real estate, correct? Like you wanted to get back to that place.
Yeah. It showed me that you really can go broke. You really can hurt. Yeah. And but it's a double-edged sword. So.
But the characters of these guys, let's go back to the character of the company. The characters of these guys, you closing all these deals and they're not paying you at all.
Well,
it's crazy.
So it's one thing to not be able to close and you're looking for clients, right?
Gotcha.
And then it's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother level when the people that you're working with, you're doing your part. And then they just hold on and just not pay you, because in real estate, the commission goes to the broker.
Correct.
The
Yeah.
broker pays the agents, right?
Gotcha. They split whatever they negotiate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they just held on, to my commissions and just never paid me.
Wow.
So it wasn't. So I was still producing.
And even when they wouldn't pay you, you still produce.
I was still going out. I was
frustrated, angry. I mean, at least sometimes.
Of course. But when you're in front of a client, when you're out, when you're about, you have to put on a game face.
Yeah, for sure.
So that part was that was a big pain point for me, and I just realized, it's important to work with good people also.
Yeah.
People that at least see your vision or work with your kind of ethics. Because you just work better. I mean, there are a lot of different personalities out there, and one personality working with one matching personality might not be the right people for you, but it's the right formula for them.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of been a thing, but I was able to learn that early on, and it has helped me really grown to, I'm very blessed to say that the people that I work with, the team that I have, the culture that we've been able to create is a very unique dynamic for any real estate team. We operate a very differently from a regular real estate team. And that was done all through the failures that I went through working in different teams, working in brokerages and things like that. So we actually go one step further to not just serve our clients, but we also serve our agents, you know.
Wow, which a lot of people don't do. So you even focus on, hey, even though this is like family, this is family, right?
Yeah.
Now, your hero, I'm guessing, is your mom. Or who is your hero?
She's one of my heroes, yeah.
Okay, who's another?
I would probably say all of my classmates in my jiu-jitsu class.
Okay, wow.
Because it takes a huge toll on your body. And it's a sport where you go in there and, you know, in business, sometimes people, they fake it till they make it, right?
Yeah.
But when you go into jiu-jitsu and you're any type of martial arts, you can't fake it. You have to go through the growth. You have to go through the training to get there. And one of my favorite things about it is that the professors or the teachers that are teaching you, they actually teach you because they want you to really become better. Whereas in the business world, a lot of people, they, you know, it's sometimes it's like they don't want to tell you everything because they feel that, you know, you know what I mean? Like there's always a hierarchy. Yeah, you know. And so that's one thing I really enjoy about jiu-jitsu. It's like everybody actually has to work. Everybody actually wants you to do better. I mean, it's a whole thing where when you're choking somebody out, right? And they're being choked out. They're like, you know, they can't. They'll tell you, oh, you got to move your arm here, and then you get a better choke. Then they're like, oh, good job. You know, it's a whole nother atmosphere. But my mother, my parents, I would say they are sort of my biggest heroes.
Who is going to be Elliot Lee in 20 years, 30 years from now?
That's a very interesting question. 20 years from now, I see me more so working in multiple facets of still the real estate business. I'm always going to be in the real estate business, but I do want to have much more of dynamics in terms of not just real estate agency, but doing things to help real estate agency. Also working on investments. I also want to work on, which I'm working on, building real estate funds, property technology, integrating AI. I mean, real estate is such is a very slow industry. It's a very slow moving industry in terms of meeting with technology. And I think that there's a very big disconnect there. And I would like to bridge that together.
And when you're gone, when you're done, Elliot, in this lifetime or whatever you believe, but what do you want people to know you for?
I want to leave the world a little bit better than how I found it. You know, when we're in business, we go through many ups and downs. Sometimes the downs are created by other people. Sometimes it's created by, you know, things that you can't control. And I want to leave this world being a little bit better than it was when I went into it.
That's it. Wow, that's amazing. Well, Elliot Lee, I want to thank you so much for being on a podcast of Aspire Noya. Guys, please follow him on social media. He's amazing in the luxury market. Love your videos, man. Thanks, so much, man. Elliot. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Elliot.